Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. Welcome, LASA parents, to the 2021 school year. We know your time is valuable, and you might have a lot of questions considering the nature of how school is going to start this year. Hopefully, we'll be able to answer most of those questions this evening, but please remember as we go through this presentation that anything can change in the era of COVID. Know if something does change, we'll try to communicate with you as quickly as we can.
Esta presentación será hecha en español también. Si le gustaría escuchar esta presentación en español, puede ir a nuestra página virtual para encontrar el enlace para la junta en Zoom. Empezaremos a las 6:15.
So first, let me introduce myself and my administrative team. My name is Stacia Crescenzi, and I'm the principal here at LASA.
My name is Alexandra Salinas, and I'm the 9th grade assistant principal.
Hello, Raptors. My name is Mr. Paulson, Academy Director here at LASA High School. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Hello, I'm Sam Chaplinsky, and I am the assistant principal for students 10th through 12th grade with last names M through Z. Welcome.
So now I'm going to introduce you to our counseling team, the very heart of our team here at LASA. Probably good to know that all the counselors I'm going to discuss can do academic counseling, personal counseling, or crisis counseling. Your student can go to these people for any of the above, and they also have some specialties. First, Miss Ashley Rios. She's our SSD coordinator. She does college advising. She's great with study tips, and she helps run our diversity council. Ms. Carol McPherson is our lead counselor. She also helps us with leadership development of students and college advising. We have a new counselor that will be joining us. She is in the hiring process as we speak. When she joins the team, she'll be in charge of OCPE, schedule management, and all the same things that all the other counselors do. In her place, helping us out again this year, is Ms. Mindy Kroom. She'll be able to work with students starting day one so that everybody in Alpha M through Z or M through R still has someone to reach out to. Finally, we have Ms. Sandy Woodrow. She works with gifted and talented registration and our LASA ambassadors. On our wellness side, we have Ms. Olga Alvarado and Ms. Alicia Salinas. Both of them also work on our no place for hate designations. Joining us this year also for the first time, we have an athletic director. That's Coach Brian Cruz. If you have any questions regarding LASA athletics, please don't hesitate to reach out for him. Yes, we have a football schedule, a volleyball schedule, basketball schedules, cross country. Lots of things are up and started. So we're excited to have the first season for the Raptors. So you'll notice that we're using the YouTube chat tonight. As we go through this presentation, if you have general questions, please don't hesitate to put them there. If it's something that's easy for the administrative team to answer, then they'll respond directly in the chat. If it's something that they'd like me to talk about, then we'll do that at the very end. We are asking, since this is a very public forum, that you refrain from asking specific questions about your child. They don't want you to put them out there in the public. However, you're welcome to reach out to any of the administrators or the counselors that were just introduced to ask those specific questions. We'll also have a link up on the website. This presentation will be recorded, put on the web, and there'll be a place to put questions by that as well, and we can respond publicly to those questions. So let's talk about how we're going to reopen. Starting on Tuesday and running until early October, all academics are going to be virtual. Students are going to be interacting with their teachers virtually. If your child does not have a computer or begins to have internet issues, they can come to campus. If they come to campus in that first month, they're going to be housed in the library. We'll give them a computer if that's what they need. They'll put a headset on and they'll still interact virtually. They'll have to be able to follow all social distancing requirements, and that includes wearing a mask at all times that they're in the building. Right now, based on the surveys that we've gotten, and thank you everybody for doing your surveys, out of 1,260 families or students, we had 1,250 respondents. So we only had 10 total people who haven't responded. That's an amazing, amazing number. Currently, we have no students planning to be with us for that first month. But again, if you begin to have computer or internet issues, don't hesitate to reach out. It's more important that we get those problems solved and you're able to interact every day with every one of your classes. So now on to October. In October, all instruction will still be virtual. Students will still go online and do all their classes through their computer. If they need or want to come to school at that time, that is an option. However, it's important that students and families know what that is going to look like. Students will be housed in small groups. They'll be in the same room for the entire school day. There will be an adult supervising them in that room, but it'll be a teacher who are teaching their own classes online and may not necessarily be your child's teacher. Your teacher will not be facing other students. The idea is that they are interacting with their classes virtually, but we certainly want to make sure that if they need a space to come, that we provide that. We'll still be at this point following all distancing guidelines, which means they'll have to stay 6 feet away from any other person on campus at a minimum, and they will have to wear their mask at all times. That means if they're responding to questions in class or they're interacting with their teacher or classmates, they will have to have their mask on. Breakfast and lunch will be eaten in that same small room. They will be able to take their mask off to eat, of course, and to drink water. So what happens after October? What happens beginning November 2nd? At this point, we got a lot of options. We may open up a little bit more. We may hold and stay where we are in October. Depending on how COVID's interacting with flu and other things in the environment, we may go back to 100% virtual and everybody at home. We just don't know yet. And I know that as frustrating as that is for you parents, it's really even more frustrating for your students and my faculty. Everybody wants to know what's happening at the end of the semester. And trust me, if I had a crystal ball, I would love to tell you, but we just don't know right now. Hopefully we'll know more as the weeks in September go forward, and we'll be able to get that information to you. So you might be wondering how we're going to take care of the building during this time. So as of right now, the classrooms that are being used will be wiped down at the end of every day. The rooms will be disinfected with a disinfectant sprayer once every 2 weeks on a rotation. The health clinic, meaning the nurse's office, will be cleaned after every student enters or leaves, regardless of why that student was present. The health clinic and the holding room will be disinfected by the disinfectant sprayer at the end of every day. You might be wondering at this point, like, what's a holding room? So if a student comes to campus and they're exhibiting signs of COVID, they won't be allowed to remain in the classroom. They'll be sent to the nurse. The nurse will, check them out. And if she agrees that those are COVID symptoms, then the student will go to the holding room and a parent will be called to pick them up. The student will not be able to go back into the building and into class until we get either a 14-day quarantine or they've been tested negative. So now let's talk a little bit about remote learning and what that's going to look like. I think the biggest thing to emphasize is, although so many students participated in remote learning in spring, remote learning in fall will not be the same. Many things are going to be different, and that could be hard. There were students that really liked the style of remote learning in spring, and there were students where that style did not work at all. I feel badly for the ones where it did work because it's not going to be similar. First off, just the way that classes are taught and the pedagogy used will be very different. We spent almost $40,000 this summer with teachers doing curriculum writing to update their classes for a virtual environment. They have done very clever things in order to give students a more traditional experience and take advantage of what's great about online learning. There'll be a different level of asynchronous and synchronous. Every single class, every single day will have synchronous learning. There'll also be times when students are asked to do things asynchronistically. You might right now be asking yourself, like, what's the difference in that? The idea around synchronous means that the student is on their computer with the teacher and everybody else in class. It may not be a lecture that's happening, but every student is expected to be on their computer with their classmates and the teacher for that entire time. That's how we're defining synchronous. Asynchronous is an assignment that students can turn their computer off, do then or do later in the day. That's your asynchronous part. So let's talk grades for a minute. There was a lot of both excitement and frustration over the fact that grades were pass-fail last year, or pass-I last year. This semester, we are back to normal grades. Assignments will still be numerically graded, and those will be entered in a grade book, with grades being averaged over the 6 weeks, a semester exam happening, and that grade being transcribed. So unlike the spring, we're back to normal grading. Attendance also is going to be very different. Every class, every day, just like traditional school. Your student is expected to be in school from 8:15 a.m. to 3:55 p.m. every day. Now, trust me, they may not be synchronistically on their computer that entire time, but the expectation is they are ready to go and quote unquote in class during that time. They will still need, as per TEA directive, 90% attendance in a class in order to get credit for that class. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. I do encourage you to have a before and after school routine for your student. It's too easy for them to roll out of bed in their pajamas and turn their computer on so that they can start just at 8:15. That's not going to be a great morning routine to help them be successful. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about that routine later. We also have some hints and ideas for an after school routine to help them really establish what is after school and what is during school, to make that transition just a little bit easier. So let's take a look at the bell schedule. Take you just a minute. You'll notice we still have 4 classes. They are 90 minutes long. We still have lunch break in the middle of the day. And yes, crazy kids, they think they're going to run their clubs during that time. They're welcome to try. It may end up working, it may not. You may end up telling them you need to spend some time off your computer during lunch every day. We also have this thing called advisory or check-in. So what's advisory or check-in? So every teacher is going to be given a small number of students, somewhere around 15 to 17, that they'll meet once a week in advisory, where we talk about SEL kinds of things, where they get updates and announcements, where we can meet with a whole class and give them information, whether that's class rings or PSAT or AP testing. It's a place where we can give information and where they can do lessons on socio-emotional learning. There'll also be one day during that week later in the semester where they come together and do a seminar class. The other 3 days are going to be check-ins, and they're going to be assigned by their advisory check-in teacher specific days that they have to check in with that teacher during that 8:15 to 9:15 time. We're doing that so that students have some one-on-one time with their advisory teacher, where if they're having internet problems, computer problems, difficulties in a class and they need advice, or just have general questions, they always know that there's someone that's going to touch base with them privately once a week at least to see how they're doing. So this is their opportunity to have that sort of private time with their advisory person. So students, I know, are going to ask you, do I really have to be up and ready at 8:15 every day? They are. That is the expectation. And to get them used to that routine, next week, Tuesday through Friday, they're going to have an actual advisory class every day from 8:15 to 9:15 to get them into that routine. Sorry, guys, there's no sleeping until 9:15. So what do kids need to have ready now so that day one, they're good to go? If they have not checked out their Chromebook, if they still don't have one or their own personal device, they need to contact us immediately. If their Chromebook has been gathering dust all summer, it's time to charge it and check it. We need to know that it's ready and it's good to go. If they haven't picked up their things from school that they need for the first couple of weeks, they need to do that as well. They're going to want to check their blend access, and they're going to want to make sure by that first day that they have all the Zoom links from their teachers. Teachers will be sending those out through their syllabi later this week if they haven't started to do that already. It's probably a good phone number for students to have by their computer and use somewhere else in your house is the help desk. If there's a computer issue that happens, or there's any other issues with logging in, the help desks are your people to call. So write this number down, 512-414-8324. That is absolutely your first stop if you have technical issues. If you need things specifically for classes, check out your teacher's emails or the syllabi that are going to be coming out soon. One recommendation we have, and this is usually pretty easy for parents, but very difficult for their teenage children, is to check the website and your emails regularly. Students do not communicate through email. They like texts, they like other social media, but that's not how we communicate. For us, it's primarily through emails, and we'll talk a little bit more about that communication later. The last thing that students are really going to need is a space that's designated for class and for studying. They may want to try out a couple places to see what works best for them. It really needs to be a place that has the least amount of distractions possible, where the internet is still strong, and where they're not going to be tempted to like lay on their bed or be in a way that's going to really be distracting to them. Some other helpful hints. Treat it like in-person school. Like you need to start just like this is going to be what they think of as real school. They need to have a morning routine. So you may want to talk to them about what that is. And it won't be the same for every student, but they need to be waking up at the same time every morning. I always encourage breakfast as the way to go. If they're a person that showers in the morning, great. If they're the person that checks, I don't know, the sports scores from the night before, fine. If they get up and they send 3 texts on their phones first, great. Whatever their morning routine is, they need to start establishing that now. And it really needs to be a routine that gets them ready and mentally set to start school. For so many students, it was that drive to school, whether it was in a car or a bus, that really made them feel like they were there. They need something that sort of mocks that as well in terms of the time to mentally prepare in the morning. I cannot tell you how much I discourage students having their cell phone sitting right by them while they're trying to do virtual classes. For the districts that have started around this, it's one of the big complaints I hear from parents is that their kids are constantly going between their phones, talking and chatting with their friends and on their computers. They're going to miss things from classes. They're going to wonder why they have homework and other students don't. I really, if there's another place to keep their phones while classes are going on and they just pull their phones when they have breaks or at lunchtime, that's my recommendation. Again, make it as normal and as much like in-person school as we can. If it were during school, we would not be allowing them to have phones during that time. If at all possible, try to make that happen at your house. Have snacks and lunch ready. Like have snacks sitting beside them or have them already prepared in the kitchen so that they don't have to take a lot of time when they take those breaks. The same way for lunch. A lot of kids want to do other things during lunchtime. If it takes them 15 or 20 minutes to like get their lunch put together, they're going to be frustrated that they weren't able to engage in clubs that might be meeting, or they weren't able to just hang out and talk with their friends. So having that all done at the beginning of the day, maybe as part of their morning routine, might be a great idea. When teachers do give them a break in class, they really need to take advantage of it. That's not a time to sit back and get on their phones. It's a time to get up out of their seat, go outside, walk up and down their hallway, do 20 jumping jacks, put on a song, dance to the music, whatever gets them moving so they feel revived to come back into class. Parents, I can't ask you to emphasize enough that your students follow the Zoom norms for each class as listed in the syllabus. Every teacher may be slightly different in what they allow and they don't allow. Everybody's probably going to need the students' faces present on Zoom. Some people allow virtual backgrounds, some people don't. Some people ask them to put a letter before their name to make it easy to break into groups. Other people break into groups differently. Whatever are the instructions of that teacher, we really need your kiddo to follow it because it'll help class be really smooth. And again, if you haven't written down that help desk number, 512-414-8324. It's a great number to have. So let's talk about on-campus procedures. Now, some of these first procedures, you may be wondering, why are you telling me this now? Because it doesn't really work because we're not going to be on campus, but it's probably still questions that you have, so we wanted to make sure we answered that. So if you have textbooks, if you picked up textbooks from us, it really is important that your student write their name and the school year in that textbook. Every year, students go study at each other's houses, or if they're eventually in class, they leave their book in class and somebody else accidentally picks it up because they all look the same. At the end of the year, when they're scanned back in, we need to make sure it gets scanned to the right person. And so if your student opens it and realizes it's not theirs, they're not going to be surprised and they can maybe go find theirs. In the end, students must return their textbooks. If they don't, they go on the obligation list. That keeps them from doing school events if they happen. That keeps them from getting new textbooks subsequent years. And it keeps them from getting their graduation diploma if they're a senior. So please, put your name and the school year in your textbooks. Students will need IDs eventually. There are some students, about 50% of our students, that receive them already. That's wonderful. For those of you that haven't, don't worry. But once we open up, we'll have an opportunity for students to get their badges. And we do require students to wear them. And they need them for other events like going to football games, volleyball games, anything else that comes up on campus. So now let's talk a little bit about attendance, because this is something that's very different from the way it was in spring. TEA, the state, says that a student may not be given credit for a class, regardless of the grade in that class, unless they have attended 90% or more of the class during that semester. So what does it mean to attend 90%? It means you are physically there during your synchronous times during that day for the entire synchronous time. If a student is marked absent, then it will not count towards their 90%. However, we still have the normal excused absences that we would during a school year. If your child has a doctor's appointment so that they go to the doctor and then return to their virtual classes, please scan that excuse, send the excuse to Ms. Villarreal, and those same excused absence would work just like we were face-to-face. However, if a student just doesn't show up, they will be marked absent and they potentially will not receive credit in that class. Normally, we are a closed campus for everybody except seniors. Please know that I know it might be disappointing to your seniors, but right now the district's looking at not allowing campuses to open up for students to leave during lunch. Yes, tardies are still a thing. If your student shows up late to their synchronous Zoom class, they can be marked tardy, and enough tardies can result in disciplinary action by the administrator. So students, just like a regular school day, need to be in class on time every period. So let's talk academic honesty. If there's one issue that sometimes kids face at LASA, it's academic honesty. In general, what we find out when kids are caught cheating is that it really was an act of desperation. They were scared about their grade. They were scared they weren't going to finish something in time. They just felt like they ran out of time and they didn't know what else to do. Teachers say over and over again, the ones that sit on the academic honesty committee, that if that student had just reached out to them, they would have been able to work something out. So I can't tell you how important it is that we encourage students to advocate for themselves. And if they got stuck in a crunch and they weren't able to get something done, don't cheat. Don't plagiarize. Don't ask for your friend's assignment. Instead, contact your teacher. Talk to your check-in and advisory teacher in the morning and let them know what happened, but don't cheat. If you are caught, there are increasing consequences. Students get a 0 on the assignment, and depending on how important that assignment is, it may mean that they get a failing or very low grade for the 6 weeks or potentially the semester. We do use Turnitin.com for essays, and those compare all essays that are out there for the public, as well as all essays that were turned in by students for that assignment. And if 2 students have the same information on their essay that either matches by a certain percentage what's on the web or of another student, we'll be bringing them in to talk to them about the potential for academic dishonesty. So parents, what can you do? I think the biggest thing we ask of you is don't put that pressure on your student. Help them with their time management, but if they really push comes to shove, you notice that they're not getting done, instead of putting more pressure on them, encourage them to reach out and go to bed. Because let them have that conversation with the teacher and figure out what to do. The pressure that they sometimes put on themselves or that they perceive from the adults around them can give them the impression that acting in a desperate manner is better than facing your wrath or getting a bad grade. And that's not the message we want them to have. We are an AP campus, and that means that the primary way that students get college credits is through advanced placement tests. And there may be some of you out there that remember these from when you were in high school, or you've already had a student come through high school. But just in case for those of you like me who didn't have a high school that did APs, or if this is for your first student in high school, let's just take a minute and talk about what they are. AP, or advanced placement classes, are college level classes taught in a high school setting. We offer 30 AP classes at LASA. That does not mean your students should be taking 30 AP classes. We offer that diversity so that students can really follow their passions and their interests and try to get college credits in those areas. AP exams take place towards the middle of the month of May. They are a national test. So everybody taking that AP class, say AP English 3, across the country takes the test on the same day at the same time. Students who receive above a 3 do get college credit for that class if they are going to a public college in Texas. Every college and university across the country gets to set the standard for when they accept AP tests for credit. However, the feedback we get from our alumni is that they get a lot of credit from these. And even if they don't directly get credit, they can a lot of times test out of some of those huge intro classes their freshman year of college because of the score that they received. For most of our classes, we have over a 90% pass rate, passing being considered 3, 4, or 5 on the AP exams. They are not cheap. Sorry, College Board is a profit-making institution. We have no say in that amount. Thank you to PF LASA, who helps subsidize some of those tests. But if you have an upper class student that's taking 3, 4, 5 exams, you may want to start planning on budgeting that now and putting a little money away every month to help pay for that. We do, if families need assistance, also help subsidize this. So when it comes time to write that check, please, if you need assistance, talk with us. We'd rather help you out than have your child not take a test that they're perfectly prepared to pass. If you have questions or you want to learn more about AP testing, go to the College Board website. You can find a lot of information there. Communication always is key, but maybe even more now when we're not seeing each other face-to-face on campus. So we always talk to students about, we really want them to be the first ones to reach out to the faculty if they have a question or if they have a concern. We need them to practice self-advocacy. Even for our 9th graders, we know it may seem a far off way, but in 4 what will be feel like short years, they're going to be freshmen in college, and the only person that can advocate for them at that time is them. So we need them to practice that now. So a lot of times they can talk with the counselor first, they can talk with us first, and then we're going to encourage them to go and talk with the teacher. If it's easier for them to email initially, that's fine. They absolutely have their check-in teacher to talk with in the morning about what's the best way to ask my teacher this, or what's the best way to get this concern addressed. Students can talk to administrators. Even in the virtual world, we have open door policies. They can always send us emails. They can always request to meet with us. We love talking with students. None of us are new. We love brainstorming with them and talking with them about how they can solve problems, look through their options, brainstorm ideas. We really like students to participate. We ask their opinion on lots of things, sometimes through ambassadors, sometimes through student council, sometimes through diversity council. And the other piece we really want to encourage is student to parent conversations. I know they're teenagers. They don't necessarily want to talk with you the way they did when they were younger. So you may want to come up with times or routines that make it easier to have those conversations. We talk a lot of time about shoulder conversations, whether it's walking the dog or driving together in the front seat. Those are great times to talk about things where students feel a little less pressure. If you get in a regular routine of talking with your student about school and asking them the same questions, they're going to be more apt to open up to you when they start having struggles. If you wait until you notice a problem, they're probably going to be less apt to open up and have those conversations with you. The other thing that we want to encourage is if you're talking to them about grades and you're opening up Blend or their team's grade book, start with the positive, and let them take the lead. Ask them what questions or what classes they want to talk about first, and let them talk about the classes where they're feeling good and having success. Please don't just focus on what you see as the zeros or the places where they have the lowest grades, because they're not going to want to talk with you in the future about it. So stay positive in the beginning of those conversations, and then be really specific about the places where you have questions to them, and not make that the focus of the entire conversation. When we send messages out to a large group of students, we do it through NAVIANCE. And that's an online system that we collect emails and everything shoots out from there. You may already be experiencing it because that's where I send my Sunday/Monday principals messages. I try really hard throughout the year to send one out either every Sunday, or when we're not in school, or Monday's a holiday, I send it out Monday. It's my one day to sleep in the weekend. But through those, we try to communicate as much information as possible. Messages can be sent to just parents, to just students, or to parents and students. Please know that we have found that when we send large bulk messages to parents and students, sometimes some internets, particularly, I think it's Yahoo, Gmail, they'll send it to trash or spam just because they notice that the number of recipients is so large. We try to take care of that by sending them in smaller doses, but if you don't receive a message for a week or two, you may want to check your trash or your spam, and if you don't find it there, then don't hesitate to reach out. One of the things that we do see is this is a change. NAVIANCE is now being updated through Teams. It used to be that parents, if you changed your email address, your child could go directly into NAVIANCE and change it there. That's no longer the case. You need to email Elaine Thompson and tell her what that change is. She goes into Teams, makes that change, and then every night at midnight, NAVIANCE is updated from Teams, and then it'll be in your NAVIANCE account. I know it's a couple of extra steps. Sorry about that. It's just the process that the district has now. The upside is we used to find students that sometimes purposely change their parents' emails. That's not going to be an option for them anymore. If your student or you are not getting things through NAVIANCE yet, the principal's message, information about club fair, information for the extension courses that we had this morning, we'll have again tomorrow afternoon, then please have your child check their NAVIANCE account to make sure that it's been updated and all the information we need is in there. The other great communication tool that we have is what's called the LASA Life app. And that's an app that you can put on your phone, that kids can put on their phone. The information for how to download it is on the LASA website under the student tab. They update that, they put that app on their phone. It gives them information about clubs. It gives them announcements. It gives them contact information for teachers. It gives them teachers' favorites. So if you have a teacher that writes your college rec, you can like figure out what their favorite snack is and drop it off for them. It really is just a great communication tool and should be something that students learn to check regularly. It's also a place where students or their sponsors can put their own announcements in so that we have a way to know what's going on in their clubs, organizations, or teams. So now let's talk a little bit about parent organizations. Bharati, are you with us tonight?
Yep, I'm here. Thank you, Stacia. Hi all, welcome to all the parents new to LASA, especially class of 2024. I'm Bharti Janapareddy, the PF LASA president. I have a rising freshman and a rising senior at LASA. PF LASA stands for Parents and Friends of LASA. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization to support the unique educational needs of our kids, while also building relationships in our LASA community. And guess what? Congratulations, you're all members of PF LASA just for having kids at LASA. We work with LASA with 3 C's, the communication, community, and cash. Our communication is through lots of LASA newsletter. It is a weekly e-newsletter to keep families informed on what's happening at LASA. Please subscribe to our website, pflasa.org. We also have an official Facebook page to help parents to get your questions answered. It's even more important now with everything being online and virtual. We as a community meet every other Friday of each month at 8:15 a.m. Our first PF LASA meeting is going to be virtual on September 18th. Ms. Crescency usually attends these meetings to help with the questions you may have. The dates are on the LASA calendar and the Zoom link will be sent at a later time. I know, you knew this was coming, right? We have fundraising. We have to in order to support this great school of ours. We just kicked off our No Hassle fundraiser this past Sunday, and thank you to each and every one who already donated. Keep it going. Our fundraising team is working real hard. Kudos to them. Actually, I can set a few examples what we did in the past with these donations. Each teacher is given $100 to use for their classroom supplies. Like Stacia mentioned earlier, this summer, we had many teachers spend their time redesigning the curriculum for an online delivery format. And PF LASA had part of the funding for that. PF LASA also helps with the funding for online professional development for teachers and counselors at LASA. We funded the new logo reveal party. That was a huge success, and also helped with student AP testing. These are only few of what we do. By the way, we're always looking for volunteers, and please send an email to president@pflasa.org if you are interested to volunteer. Feel free to send us an email if you have any questions. Again, welcome to LASA, and trust me, it's going to be a fun ride. Thank you, and back to you, Stacia.
Thanks, Bharati, I appreciate it. We also have a traditional PTSA, which is a great organization that we have where parents come together both from LASA and from LBJ. The primary goal of that organization is community building, both around the staff and around the parents. It's open to staff, and because we're a high school, it's open to students as well. So your kids are welcome to join the PTSA. They can sit on the board, they can come to events, they can come to our meetings. We really, really encourage parents and students to be a part of the PTSA as well. Another communication tool is the AISD Parent Cloud or the Parent Portal. You find it at www.myaustinaisd.org, and many of you that have been in AISD for a while are super familiar with this. It's where you can do your online registration. It's where you check the grade book, report cards. It's where you can check your kids' attendance. Once we get back at school, you can put their lunch money in their account. You can see their schedule. You can see the data that we have on them. If you haven't logged in and checked on everything, that's something that you might want to do before the 8th. Some final helpful hints that we have. Time management, time management, time management. Going to LASA, one of the big advantages is we will keep your child busy. They will have to figure out how to organize their time and how to manage it. And in doing that, they also need to know when to say no. When is their schedule full and they just can't take on that other responsibility, particularly as they move into junior and senior year and they want to become leaders in their organizations. They may have to drop an organization that they're not a leader in to devote more time to the cause or the thing that they're most passionate about. They really need in this, once while we're virtual, to schedule study times. It's going to be really easy to be exhausted at the end of the school day and be like, I'll get to that later, or I'll get up early and do that, or I'll take a nap and study later. They need to set aside time that specifically they're going to use to study. They need to pay attention to their sleep patterns. I know they're teenagers. They do not want to hear me say this, but they really still need a bedtime. Most of us, for adults, if you ask us, like, what's your bedtime? There's a standard time where we go to bed nearly every night. Our kids need the same thing. They still need sleep. They're going to try to convince you that they go to LASA and therefore have to do all-nighters. It's just not true. If we can help them learn to manage their time, there are many, many, many students that go to bed at a reasonable time and get up at a reasonable time because they've figured out when to get their work done, and they've taken advantages of the breaks they have during the day and the little bit of free time that they have to get done what they need to so that they can prioritize sleep. If you do notice some big changes in your child's sleep pattern, that may be a time to talk with them or reach out to a counselor for suggestions. Ask questions, ask questions, ask questions. A lot of times, LASA students are hesitant to ask questions in class because they're worried about what their classmates are going to think or worried about what the teacher is going to think. Yes, I know they're teenagers and looking good and smart in front of their friends feels important, but it's not as important as getting those questions answered. They really can't hesitate to ask in class, come to the teacher's office hours, go where they need to get those questions answered. I will say one advantage to being virtual is that a lot of students feel way more comfortable putting a question in the chat than raising their hand in class. They feel like it's a little less obvious. So please encourage them, ask questions. I've talked to valedictorians over and over again over the years. This is my 10th year at LASA, and many of them tell me that the secret to their success is going to office hours or tutoring starting day one. They just look at whatever class they think is going to be most difficult, and they just show up at those teachers' office hours whether they need assistance or not, because it helps to establish a relationship with the teacher. So when it does start to get difficult, or they do start to find themselves having questions, they don't feel as uncomfortable. They already know that teacher, the teacher recognizes them, and it's easy then to start asking those questions. We're also going to have a study hall this year run by a teacher. So if a student just needs to be on a Zoom and then sitting there doing their homework, but feel like somebody's watching them, that opportunity will be there. We're going to try to put as many things in place as we can to meet the varied needs of our students. Organizational skills. They're going to have to figure out how to take big projects and chunk them into time. They're going to have to they're going to have to learn how to think about a test and study a little bit each night leading up to that so that they don't have to do all-nighters. They're going to have to figure out how to put their club time, their practice schedule, their extracurriculars in place alongside their classes. And again, they need to know when to ask for help. And sometimes that help is going to a counselor and say, I can't figure out how to do it all. Can you help me? The counselors are all more than able to do that. And so is the administrative team. Let's face it, as adults, we figure out how to do that all the time. And honestly, as adults, sometimes we figure out we're not going to be able to do it. And for our students, that's when we have to encourage them to reach out to their coach, reach out to their teacher, and let them know they need an extension on something. So that's our general presentation for the evening. I'm going to take a minute and look at what questions you've put in the web chat. Go back over some of those things. Please remember that don't ask specific things about your child. This is really an opportunity to get those big questions answered. Bus schedules usually come out a couple of days before school starts. They are in the Bus Finder, either app or on the AISD website. They are going to practice running the buses the first few days of school. Please don't let that mislead you. They're there just to run the routes. But they will still come out early before school begins, usually the Thursday or Friday before school begins. No, we are not regularly going to record classes. Some teachers will occasionally record pieces of them or lectures, but for the most part, the same way as in live school, students need to be there. If they have a legitimate reason for not, obviously they can communicate that, they can turn in that excuse. But one of the things we learned in spring was if we record everything, they don't feel like there's a need to show up. And then they don't actually watch it when they think they're going to watch it. It makes it really easy for the student to procrastinate. Right, the hybrid option is what we discussed. For LASA, that hybrid option is students coming in school, being in a small group, in a classroom, doing their work still online. That is how we are running our hybrid model. And honestly, that's the way most of the principals I know are running their hybrid model. Absolutely, the month of October is staying 100%. The instruction will be 100% virtual. We're not reconsidering that. We are considering what we're going to do in November, but October is set. I agree, it's a lot of time in front of their computers. A lot of that comes from TEA regulations in terms of funding in order for what we need to be done. And a lot of it's feedback from students who asynchronous was really hard for them to get the depth that they needed, and they really preferred to have a lot more interaction with their classmates and interaction with the teachers. Now, just because they're in there 90 minutes doesn't mean they're going to have to be synchronous that whole 90 minutes. Teachers have a lot of flexibility in what they can do during that time. They can do 45 minutes synchronous, 45 minutes asynchronous. They can do 30 minutes synchronous, 30 minutes asynchronous, 30 minutes synchronous again. Again, there are lots of options that teachers have. What we're telling students, though, is our expectation is that they are available and working on school from 8:15 to 3:55, just like a normal school day. So the rule for phones when we were in real school, like when we were live, was that with teacher permission, they could get it out. So it's the same rule. Absolutely, there are some great uses for technology, including cell phones. So if a teacher says, okay, everybody get your phone out, then a student can get up, go get their phone from wherever the phone jail is, and come and get it. In fact, a lot of teachers, when we were on campus, would have a place for when students walked in the door, they put their phone, when they asked them to get it out, they walked over, they got it, they used it, and they put it back. You can set up that same sort of process in your own homes. There's still gonna be homework. It may or may not be of the same level as in previous years, but absolutely students are still gonna have homework to do. There's no way we can get through the breadth and depth of the courses without that. I do realize that there are some schools, both in AISD and across the country, that have decided to cut their courses in half, so that students are getting half or 2/3 of the curriculum. We've certainly cut it back a little bit. By no means have we cut it back halfway. We really feel like that's not going to prepare kids moving forward to the subsequent class or to their college classes. The ambassadors do run different kinds of mentoring programs throughout the year. So does the Black Student Union. The Black Latino Student Union runs that. Diversity Council does things. So there's a variety of opportunities for students to get mentoring. We don't force it, partly because just of sheer numbers, and that by not doing that, that really allows us to put more emphasis on the students who are feeling isolated and who might want to have a mentor. But there's going to be a lot of other opportunities for community building. For those of you who your children attended extension courses today, It was great. We had hundreds and hundreds of kids in those extension courses. In fact, one of the teachers who's brand new to LASA called me this evening and said, what was the carrot? Like, what did you offer kids to come to these extension courses? And I was like, nothing. And he's like, I can't believe it. They showed up. And I'm like, great. Like, how many kids showed up? 81 kids showed up for his extension course. And he was just blown away. He said they had incredible conversation, and it was about unsolved mysteries. So there was nothing academic about it. It was pure fun. And it was just a bunch of kids who wanted to talk about, like, you know, this unsolved mystery, and they're going to do another one tomorrow. So hint, it's Sasquatch. It's Bigfoot tomorrow. So that's a secret. Now you know. But we're trying to put in those kind of events so that it's more authentic and kids get to find their niche and hang out with other students who have similar interests, because that's generally what we found happened when they hung out at school. I know for one of the extension courses I did today, we just hung out, we pretended we were at a coffee shop, and we just talked about like our favorite fantasy novels. And at the end, kids all exchanged emails. Like that way, later as they read things or they're looking for a new book, they're gonna email the kids that they met today and be like, hey, what are you reading? Or just read this great book, you might wanna check it out. That kind of authentic community building we find works a lot better than sort of artificially putting kids together and be like, hi guys, get along. I know that there are a lot of teachers as well, particularly teachers of 9th graders, who are going to put kids in small groups those first couple of days to exchange contact information. So if they ever miss a class, so if their Zoom like starts to go on the fritz, they have someone they can text or email immediately to be like, hey, I need let in, or hey, tell the teacher I'm having this problem. So we're putting those systems in place as well. All the things for athletics are on the website. I know that they're requiring masks. I know that they're requiring health checks at the beginning of every practice. I know that they're limiting the number of spectators at outside events. I know that they're not allowing any spectators at this point at indoor athletic events. So sorry, volleyball team. One administrator is still allowed to be there. So we'll be really loud cheering you on from the stands, I promise. I know that at some point in the season, there's going to be testing that's going to happen sort of, randomly for students for COVID. Again, most of that information is on the AISD website, the UIL website, and ours. No, I'm sorry. There's absolutely nothing that's asynchronous for advisory and electives. They're run like real classes. That might be true for elementary, and maybe that's what the learning plan's talking about. But for us, absolutely, we take our electives seriously. Those are not times for kids to just not be engaging with their teacher or their classmates. They're going to have those same options for synchronous. If it's asynchronous, they won't even be able to get credit for the class. And which, when you're talking about middle school and elementary, isn't as big of an issue. Yep, teachers aren't excited about online testing. We're looking at different options, but it's definitely harder. The reality is come on, our kids are smart and they're savvy, regardless of like their intellect. They're teenagers. When we were teenagers, we tried to find ways around the rules. It's no different. Any kid who really, really feels like they want to cheat is going to try to find a way. We'll put in whatever precautions that we can, but really the absolutely best precaution is for the student to feel prepared for whether it's the project, it's the essay, it's the test. And when they don't, and they need more time for valid reasons, learning to reach out and self-advocate and see what they can do is a way better option than that pressure, maybe making them feel like I have no other thing that I can do, I'm gonna have to cheat. If you're missing a textbook, my suggestion would be to email Ms. Adela Cifuentes. Her contact information is on the website to see if there's another time when you can pick it up. We're trying to do it in standard times so that we have less people up on campus and there's less interaction with the staff on this up at school. But absolutely, we want to get you the supplies that you need. Up on our website, teachers have put in, based on the class, the supplies that LASA is going to be providing and the supplies that the families need to provide. So you can just go to the website. I believe it's the first link on the left-hand side. You can just look it up by class. No, there is, so sports are only practicing after school up through, at this point, definitely October, probably November. We are not having any on-campus practices during the school day, even during the athletic periods, until probably November. So Naviance is one account for your family. Embedded in that account is your student information and all parent information. Even if parents live in different houses, it's still one account. Only students can enroll. It's really a student mechanism where they put your information in. I haven't seen any planners that AISD puts their info into. We purchased an online planner system for students this year that we hope we can get up and running in the first couple of weeks. We're waiting on the data sharing agreement with the district, but that planner will directly link with the Blend so that every time a teacher inputs an assignment or an assessment, it'll automatically go to your child's calendar. We're kind of excited about that. It has a lot of great features for how to break down things as well. And it has a view-only parent portion. So you could go into that Studio app at any time and sort of see what your student has done, which assignments they've completed, which ones are coming up. I don't know what AISD info parents are looking for. For LASA policies, everything's on the website. The student handbook's on the website. Blend is the student learning platform. So each class will have a tile on Blend that students will enter, and that's where they engage with their classmates. That's where their assignments are. That's where teachers post information. Naviance is really a communication tool and a college accessibility tool. So as your student matriculates through to senior year, Naviance is where they put in the colleges that they're thinking about. It's where they can look at graphs that show lots of students with similar GPAs and test scores in the college, colleges where they were waitlisted or they were accepted or they were denied. It's also a place where when students apply to college, teachers put their recommendations, they upload them through Naviance. So it's really a massive communication tool. It's very different than Blend, which is the learning management system. No, Friday's like a normal class day. It's starting September 8th, it's normal school, 8:15 to 3:55, pretty much every day. Yeah, there's a question about, are we gonna like take the extension classes and move them into the semester? It's possible. I think that what a lot of students might do is if they really love the extension course, they may ask the person that ran the extension course to sponsor a club on the same topic. Right now, we're sitting at about 60 clubs. My guess is by the time we get back into winter semester, or spring semester, we'll probably have, between 100 and 120 clubs. But a lot of times that's what extension courses grow into. Absolutely, like if we have other days where we can have that, like teachers love them as well. They're not really things we prep for. They're things that we're excited or interested or passionate about. And we just love to chat with kids about them. So I'm glad that whoever put that, their kid must have enjoyed their extension course today. 2 more opportunities for extension courses tomorrow afternoon. So if your student wasn't able to attend today, they can look at the offerings, sign up, or just pop into that Zoom session. Oh, some questions about signing up for clubs. So you just show up the first time. So you go into the LASA Life app, you go under clubs, you see what all the clubs are. They have a description and they have contact information, and they have when they're meeting. So for some of the clubs, they can just show up the first day. If a student's unsure about that, they can email or go to the website for that particular club. Many of them have websites to see, yeah, I think this is a good match, something I'm interested in. And then if they're nervous, they can email the person and say, hey, is your club still meeting? This is what I'm interested in. Does it match what your club does? But for most of the clubs, people are just welcome to come in, you know, and sometimes students start the first week, and sometimes it can be, you know, a month or two into school before students feel like they have, you know, the lay of the land and they feel comfortable joining clubs. There's absolutely no pressure to start those early. The AB schedule's out. If it's not already on the website, we can look at getting that up, but that's designed by the district. So it's something that the district gives us. It's a little hard for me to say hours of homework because it's so dependent on what classes your student has. When I'm talking to teachers, we usually think, you know, that, again, depending on the class, it may be 20 minutes a night for the classes that they had that day. If it's getting close to the end of the 6 weeks, it's probably going to be longer than that. I know that some teachers are trying to build in more time to work on things asynchronistically during their class period, but again, it's going to depend on that unit. It's going to depend on what the assignments are. It's going to depend on that specific class. Project-based classes have a lot more ability to do asynchronous than super content-heavy classes. For my people that are creating my questions, if you want to take one last look, there are things that have come up that I haven't addressed. If you'll go in and highlight those for me, I can make sure I adjust them. Otherwise, it's been great talking with you this evening. Again, this presentation was recorded. It'll get put up on the website tomorrow. And there'll also be a link there that if you have further questions, feel free to ask them. Again, that's a public link and the answers will be public. So if you have very specific things about your child, we'd appreciate you email us individually so that we can give you that information privately. Great, that looks like all the questions. So again, thank you very much for joining us. We're so appreciative that your students are going to be at LASA this year. Yes, it's going to start a little differently, but we've got lots of ideas. Some are going to work, some aren't going to work as well, but we're going to keep trying. We're thrilled to have you with us. Your kids are going to be welcome and they belong with us. Have a great evening. Thank you.